Season 1999 was one of the toughest in recent memory. Three sides battled it out for fifth spot, while the minor premiership wasn't decided until the final round. And the grand final was a thrilling, if not controversial, affair. Now it looks even tougher. Some of the underachievers of recent years expected to have big seasons.
North Nelson Bay have built up very, very well, and they've got a very good coach in Peter Walsh, and he's brought a couple of guys from England and brought very well, and I think you'll find that they'll be very strong.
While Macquarie have gone from almost folding to doubling player numbers within weeks.
The entrance game, most people know we got annihilated in, was a bit of a catalyst in that we've gone forward from there. We've brought probably half a dozen to 10 players to come to the club since that time.
The first round, set down for April 8 and 9, will be something, with last year's grand final protagonists, Cessnock and Wests, to go head-to-head. But on the menu at the league's launch today, Newcastle ordered the return of the Country Cup, and it looks set to be a showdown with Central Coast for the title.
They're sort of given to me at the moment. They've been knocking us over in the Konami pre-season, but we hope we get through to play them on the Sunday up there at Foster, and if we do, we'll surely even up the scoreline there.
Newcastle play Northern Rivers on Saturday for the right to contest the final on Sunday. These young faces are the future of women's sport. Today they assembled at the Glendale Athletics Centre to showcase their skills and to be inspired by former Olympians like figure skater Danielle McGrath and hockey medalist Robin Leggett, part of 100 years of women in the Olympics.
1896, the first Olympics, and women weren't allowed to compete. But actually in 1900 in Paris, a few women snuck into the tennis and the golf. And so Sydney 2000 is the centenary of women's participation in the Olympics.
Also on hand, Olympic distance running hopeful Angela Sheehan, who jets to Korea next week for an international relay event.
Really excited about that. I think I'll be running a 6K leg of the 42-kilometre distance. So some of the girls in the team have represented Australia at the Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games, so it's going to be great to run again with them.
These youngsters may one day be Olympians themselves. A group of small business people opened the new business centre at Gateshead today. The building is staffed by business experts and can house 20 separate projects on site until the would-be entrepreneurs find their feet.
We're giving them advice on their day-to-day running of their business, as well as financial and secretarial type services as well. We also operate a niche training scheme here. We're one of the three parties that's delivering that in the Hunter.
6 businesses have already moved in, like Grant Gibson's Assured Professional Cleaning.
It's a good opportunity for us again to put a good footing down here to expand and continue to move ahead.
The failure rate of new small businesses in Australia is around 70%, but for those who set up within an incubator like this one, the success rate is 70%.
There's a lot of people that have been retrenched that do have ideas that they just wish they could put into place, but just don't have the skills to put in together business plans and management plans to really make them successful.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Inside this small, unassuming hall on the shores of Lake Macquarie, big plans are being made. 15-year-old Stephanie Rennie is putting the finishing touches on the classical ballet routine she'll take to London next week when she competes in the world-renowned Adeline Genet competition at the Royal Academy of Dance. But it's likely Stephanie won't be coming home.
I might stay at either the English National, the Hamburg or the Royal Ballet.
In fact, 4 European schools all want to secure her services despite being 3 years shy of the normal entry age.
She's a very talented and dedicated young lady and she always tries very hard. to always achieve what she sets out to do. And she's been very successful.
While a gruelling 6-day practice schedule constantly tests her young body, her thoughts are already of the international stage.
This is the ultimate for her.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
While Maitland's figures for drug offences are good, not so in Cessnock.
There's no real surprises. We always knew we had a drug problem in the area.
The coalfields figures are far worse than the rest of New South Wales. In Cessnock, twice as many people are charged with possession and use of cannabis. 3 times as many are caught with drugs like LSD and ecstasy, while the rate for amphetamines or speed is 7 times the state's average. Many of those arrested are from out of the area, prompting fears that people travel to Cessnock to buy drugs. After reading his city's report, the Mayor of Maitland is more worried about problems in the home.
The one that concerns me most of all is the domestic violence level.
Figures for domestic violence and sexual assault across the Lower Hunter are almost double the state average. Maitland and Cessnock Council committees will develop plans to deal with the problems identified in the reports.
And of course every strategy will be tailor-made to the area, and hopefully we'll have a reduction in the incidence of crime in the area.
Coming off the bench, Trezebski's first touch against Canberra set up John Bonavolia to head home a crucial goal on Tuesday night.
And Lee was happy because he thought he just made a genius move, and he told me that. And hopefully they won't need me to come on and score a goal, but it'll be good to get that.
But he almost wasn't going north to Brisbane at all. A yellow card against the Cosmos sparked confusion that he was suspended. Even his coach Lee Sterry thought he was without the midfielder.
He said, don't you want to go to Brisbane? And I thought, it's the way that I've been training. And I said, I want to go. And he said, I think you're suspended, but we'll have to check with Soccer Australia. And I was a bit worried overnight, but they cleared it up.
One player coming back from suspension, striker Andy Harper.
Obviously Andy Harper coming back, he's probably been one of our top 2 players consistently all season, so against his old club he'll be looking to do well.
But one thing coaching staff want is a good start, something that's been missing in recent weeks.
It's important to get a foothold in the match and then finish it off, because normally we can come home pretty strong.
Officers from 17 stations across the Hunter swapped their official uniforms for casual clothes earlier this month, in protest of what they claim is outdated and impractical attire. But today their wish of trialling new uniforms was granted.
The State Superintendent Malcolm Voisey agreed to conduct the trial. The trial will commence in approximately 2 to 3 months. That gives them enough time to measure the officers, get the uniforms made, the materials.
The union is claiming its industrial campaign was a success in getting top-level officials to talk to them.
Something that only lasted for a day, but basically got management talking to us, something that needs to be done across the board, and we think that's going to happen more and more.
The new green uniform will be similar to overalls currently worn by paramedics. It'll also have additional pockets, reflective strips and knee and elbow padding.
It'll be a combined uniform where you can combine wet weather gear, thermal gear, parkas all in one. So it'll actually cut down on the cost of the total uniform that's now supplied to ambulance officers.
The trial will run for 6 months and will include officers from all over the state. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Because that should be the first drawing.
Got
the reflective,
and then we got reflectives up here too.
We were against Japanese, Chinese, North Americans. Great credit, I guess, to our design engineers and our sales team to come up with the goods in the end.
The former Newcastle Falcons captain was back on the Broadmeadow court he loves, helping out New Lambton primary students today, but on Sunday it'll be the Hunters who'll be suiting up for.
Ooh, I'd hate to give us a kiss of death, but I think we'll go all right. We've got some top players.
Former Falcon Tony Jensen is in the side as well, but it's the possible addition of another Australian rep in Ben Melmoth next month that'll make the Hunters a real force.
Yeah, it's almost an unfair advantage to have a 7-footer.
Meanwhile, it's grand final time for Newcastle District Cricket this weekend, with Charlestown taking on Hamilton Wickham. Last year's winners, Charlestown, are favourites after not losing a game this season. The Newcastle Rugby Union season starts tomorrow with the Maitland Wanderers and Eastern District Waratahs clashes the highlights, while Nelson Bay makes its top grade debut. Round 4 of the NBN Soccer League kicks off tonight at Edgeworth, while tomorrow Olympic hosts the Rosebuds in a grand final replay. There are 4 games on Sunday. Overnight in a catch-up game, Hamilton beat Western 2-0.
Last week's wet weather played havoc with preparations, but today's blue skies were a welcome backdrop for around 40 riders. The competition was more casual than most, but still had horses and riders from beginners through to an international standard in the arena. And there was no slacking off in front of the judges.
We look for development of rhythm and straightness and soundness and suppleness and obedience. And the ultimate is when the horse appears to be doing of his own free will exactly what is set down in the test.
And for something a little bit different, as part of Heritage Week celebrations, riders were bridging the gap between the generations.
Trying to stress the fact that it's a sport for all ages at the same time on a fairly equal basis. And we had the family teams competition.
Brooke Webster, NBN News. Showtime in Wingham is a blue ribbon event. Equestrian events took centre stage this morning. The show jumping tested the balance of horse and rider, while nearby the judges were assessing more particular performances. And it was serious business for the owners of these dairy cattle. The entries all made walking away at the head of the herd a difficult task. And it wasn't just the biggest of beasts on show. A reptile display had people's skin crawling. But man also muscled in on the action. And if wood chopping wasn't up to speed, then there were plenty of carnival rides to thrill even the bravest youngsters. The action continues tonight with the famous Wingham Rodeo. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
Approved Fire Gear sells and maintains firefighting equipment. Around midnight, it went up in smoke. The irony isn't lost on owner Terry Priestley, but he's sure it's no accident.
Subject to a malicious break-in. Fire's been lit down the back several times, and it spread through the back workshop into the front part of the office area.
The building was fully alarmed and the fire brigade was quickly alerted, cutting their way into the building to discover a fire lit in at least 3 places. Approved Fire Gear's records were saved and the 20-year-old business will survive.
This will just give us more to go on with. So, as I said, all our records are all totally intact and all that side of it's fine. It's just the workshop side of it's slightly singed.
Exactly 1 month ago, a nearby car dealership was also put to the torch, causing $150,000 worth of damage, sparking fears that an arsonist is at work in Maitland.
Well, we seem to be the one of a few in the area, so everyone's aware of it.
David McElwain, NBN News. A quick crank got the festival started this morning. Drivers and passengers were dressed for the occasion, and when mobile phones gave way to a wave of the hand, a foot on an old-fashioned pedal started 100 vintage cars on their journey along the Golden Highway from Newcastle to Dubbo. The procession will link two of the cities out of 270 locations across the state involved in a week of heritage celebrations. At Maitland, St Paul's Anglican Church welcomed Heritage Week with 6 bell ringers working overtime. Morpeth was quickly into the swing of things. A convict march reenacted the arrival of the first prisoners for Maitland Jail, complete with an attempted escape. Maitland will continue its historical celebrations with Steamfest next week. The two men couldn't make it to a safe landing spot near Kurri Kurri, and there is no doubt that the pilot and his passenger had little right to survive. The Pit Special cut its way through trees, slicing them in half and leaving its wings behind. By comparison, the cockpit area was hardly damaged.
What we saw of the accident site, those two guys were lucky to be alive.
It's thought that the aerobatic biplane got into trouble while the pilot was doing low-level manoeuvres. One of the men had a broken wrist, the other a fractured cheekbone. The Westpac rescue helicopter winched the two men out of the scrub and delivered them to John Hunter Hospital, where they stayed overnight. The two Sydney men so lucky to survive this accident wouldn't speak about their ordeal today, but they still may have to face a Bureau of Air Safety investigation. David McElwain, NBN News.
Combined, these vehicles are worth close to $500,000, but to their owners, they're priceless. And even the continuing rain couldn't keep fellow vintage vehicle enthusiasts away. They took their own set of wheels to see some of the greatest sets of wheels, some from as early as 1925, like this Austin 7. And it wasn't just vintage Australian cars like the old FJ, or these classic Harley motorbikes, or even a nifty little sports car that drew a look. What about this? An old army car designed to handle driving under 2 metres of water. Perfect for today's conditions. All the vehicles were from local clubs on the Central Coast. Meanwhile, at Mingara today, a competition saw a Central Coast team emerge victorious in the Marching Association State Championships. The Peninsula Monarchs showing a packed audience their own choreographed piece to claim all the division titles. The same team also managed to impress judges last year, earning an overall third in the national titles. Peninsula Monarchs will get another shot at the national title as they compete in Brisbane later this month. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Having some tyre or some sort of cushioning effect to turn the car in, it's just gone. So the car's understeered straight off the road and decided to become part of the scenery behind us, which is not so good.
Midfielder Mark Wilson isn't the type of player to back down, but his clash with Nick Meredith caused plenty of concern in the Breakers camp.
Yeah, at first when he got me, he definitely got me. I didn't get him, and at first I thought, luckily it didn't hit the bone, but yeah, it's just a pretty bad cork, so it's not too bad.
Still, he'll need plenty of physio during the week to be ready for the coming clash with Parramatta Power.
This is the most important time of the season now, and with only 6 rounds to go before the semi-finals, and every game's pretty important. We've got to be basically 100% for every game.
The game made even more important given a win would all but secure a semi-final spot. Sitting 5th on percentages, a win would create an all-important buffer with 6 rounds remaining. While John Bonavolia has another tally to add to. He's only 1 goal behind in the scorers list with 15.
Oh, he's on fire at the moment, yeah. He's doing everything right, and if he can keep scoring for us, we should be right.
After a slow start to the Country Championship campaign, Newcastle has powered through the qualifying matches, scoring 112 points for and conceding just 24 in 3 games. And a lot has been due to the likes of former Knights and Western Suburb star Leo Devner, who starred over the weekend. Ironically, he was only a late inclusion to the squad.
Blokes like Leo Devner and that, like you can't sort of go past him. He probably was the best player over the weekend.
Captain Jared O'Doherty bore the scars of a tough weekend when Newcastle beat Northern Rivers before putting North Coast away. The only injury concern is over Grant Robinson, but it's thought all players will be right considering the country title is within reach.
You'd nearly play the broken leg to play in a country divisional championship.
Interestingly, all players will be available to play for their clubs in Newcastle's opening round this weekend.
If you didn't play for your club, you wouldn't be playing for Newcastle, so you really got to do the right thing by the guys back there, and shouldn't be any dramas. Like we've played games leading up to the games we've already played, and there hasn't been any dramas.
At first glance, it looks like it's ready to collapse under its own weight, but this is a bridge the Dungog Shire Council believes is structurally sound.
The handrails on the side are falling off. The bitumen's washing away on the abutment to the bridge itself. There's a number of loose planks on the bridge. And I guess most importantly, there's a number of structural members that have come adrift.
Locals like Sean Sears say they don't feel safe on the river crossing and are concerned for the 30 children who cross the bridge twice a day on the school bus.
I'd like to see some funds allocated in the budget, and to date that hasn't been the case. And I'd like to see some interim repairs happen immediately, and I'd like to see a long-term solution to rectifying the bridge.
The Dungog Mayor says he hopes to include funds in the 2001 budget for the bridge's repair. From one extreme to the other, the nearby Clarencetown Bridge is so valuable it's about to be declared a national treasure. The Williams River crossing on the Patterson Road was built in 1878 and will now be the subject of an RTA conservation management plan, ensuring it's looked after well into the future. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
We had the devil's own job to get America to give us the rights to do it.
A rotted girder lay on the riverbank beneath the century-old bridge today. It came crashing down last night, leaving a large depression in the bridge deck.
About past 9, 10 o'clock last night I heard this crunch, and all of a sudden, we came out this morning and found the pier and the girder on the end here gone.
Margaret Cox, her husband Neville and son Chris have lived next to the river crossing for more than 30 years and recently raised concerns to the RTA about the poor condition of the bridge.
The trucks are going across and at least 2 or 3 inches just jumping up in the air. Oh, he said, that's natural. I said, no, not to me it isn't.
I watch it, and when the semis go over, the log just has nearly turned to double. None of the nuts and the bolts just drop down on the ground. So.
In fact, Neville loves his local bridge so much, he built this 3-metre-long working model, complete with adjoining house. He says his bridge is structurally sound and is amazed the real one has lasted as long as it has.
It's over 100 now, and it wasn't made for these sort of things, and now the traffic's fast and big and heavy, so I reckon they've done well to do it.
The RTA spent today making repairs, confident of reopening the crossing by tonight. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It was a garage sale of industrial proportions.
Well, the buyers have come from all over Australia. They've come from Melbourne, they've come from Brisbane, Sydney, Adelaide and New Zealand. I don't know of any Southeast Asians that are here, but there could be because there's a number of Asians here in amongst the crowd.
John Yates has made and sold plastic products for industrial, catering, medical and domestic use, from plastic wrap for bread to the bags you carry your shopping in, to those all-important bags we use to dump our rubbish. But that's all in the past now. A steady dilution of protection tariffs by successive federal governments has seen a 30% tariff whittled away to 5% in just 30 years, leaving John little choice but to liquidate and lay off almost all of his 40 staff.
The sad thing about it is if we try to make the same bags and to export them back to those countries, there's a duty at the other end paid from between 85 to 120%. And that's what our government calls the level playing field.
You may be surprised to learn that this is more a case of if you can't beat 'em, join 'em. Manager John Yates is now organising the transition of his business to his son Justin. Together they face the task now of importing and distributing foreign plastic products.
Now there's 30,000 tonnes of plastic checkout bags coming from China every year.
Today's auction raised $500,000 for the new business.
My accident came about because I got in the car with a drink driver and I didn't put a seatbelt on. It wasn't the drink driver's fault, so to speak, although he thinks it was my fault. The message is for the young people of Maitland is go out, have a good time.
The impending closure of the Broadmeadow-based Warramai Juvenile Detention Centre came as a major shock to its 82 staff. They were expecting the government to continue looking for an alternative site in the Hunter.
I think the thing that annoys the union the most is that there's been absolutely no consultation about the decision and the announcement.
Bill Ferguson from the Public Service Union says the Carr government has gone back on its word to relocate the centre locally.
Yeah, there was an election promise by the then Minister for Juvenile Justice, Faye Lopo, that the $18 million set aside for the relocated refurbished Warramai, which came out of recommendations from the Ombudsman's inquiry in 1996, would be retained in this region. Now that's not, by this proposition, is not going to happen.
Juvenile Justice Minister Carmel Tebbit announced yesterday detainees will be moved to either Central Coast or Sydney, much too far away, says the union.
One of the real problems that the detainees have is the isolation of the detention centres, and that contact with their family is very important to their rehabilitation. And I mean, this decision seems to me to fly in the face of a good rehabilitation process.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.